In your view, what are the key factors to win the fight against cancer in the future?
Yeah, so obviously I mentioned early diagnosis and I mentioned access to treatment. I think that the third thing really would be how the government goes about trying to finance the investment. And what we see that the investment of GDP in healthcare in Thailand flat, and it's been flat for the past 10 years. So how do you then have better outcomes in cancer without investing? Well, it's impossible. You need to invest. But there are different ways that we can look at that. And what we're trying to do is today, the traditional method of appraising medicines, whether they are cost effective for Thailand, and we do a health technology appraisal. Unfortunately, that is not sufficient for cancer medicine. It's not a sufficient process for cancer medicine. So we need alternative approaches. Some approaches could be, how do we use, for example, sin taxes from alcohol, taxes from tobacco, which actually cause cancer. How do we use those taxes, invest those into a healthcare budget that supports cancer? That's possibly one way. The other way is how does the government work in partnership with manufacturers like Roche and other pharmaceutical companies to make sure that patients in Thailand can access medicines? And there are many different ways that we work with governments all around the world. So with some governments around the world, for example, if I look at Korea, we have what we call an outcomes agreement in Korea. So actually we say our medicines achieve this in our clinical trials. And therefore, you should expect those same outcomes. So if we achieve those outcomes, then please pay us the price that we requested. However, if we don't achieve those outcomes, you don't have to pay us as much. And that's called outcomes-based pricing. So that's one way. The other way is volume-based. Yeah. So obviously, the more that the government's willing to spend on medicines, then obviously the cheaper they should be. And those are other approaches that we can take. And then also things like capping. So for example, we know that, today the average number of patients diagnosed every year with liver cancer is around about 27,000 people here in Thailand. Now, we therefore know how many of them potentially need treatment as well. So we can start working out these budgets, and therefore we can say, okay, well, we'll create a cap. Yeah, if your budget is, I don't know, let's say, for example, 50 billion Thai baht to treat this cancer, then okay, if we go over that, then Roche or another pharmaceutical company takes some risks. However, if you go under that treatment threshold, then you take the risk. So there are different ways from an alternative financing that actually the government can procure and work with manufacturers, as well as different ways that actually it can get funding as well from its medicines through its taxation system and through its policies as well.
On occasion of World Cancer Day, how Roche has contributed to the transformation of the lives of people with cancer.
Yeah, thanks, Kunyard, for asking that question. We invest 12 billion euros in research and development every single year. We invest more research than any other pharmaceutical company in the world. In fact, we're in the top 10 of all companies in terms of driving research to improve health. And the majority of that research is in cancer. And actually that gets translated to Thailand. So actually Roche here in Thailand, we've been here 50 years. And we invest more in clinical trials than any other pharmaceutical company. In fact, today I can tell you that we have 32 clinical trials in oncology in 117 different hospitals. Wow. And currently today, approximately 530 patients are getting treated with the most advanced therapies, not yet even licensed in the rest of the world, to help treat cancer. So we significantly invest in research and development as well. From a medicine side, then quite interestingly, since about 2018, we've helped treat over 10,000 women with breast cancer with one of our medicines. And today what we see is that breast cancer has dropped out of the top 3 most common causes of death. Yeah, and it dropped out of the most common causes of death in the top 3 because of the access to one of our targeted therapies, which is phenomenal, which goes to show when the government does invest in the right medicine, it has an impact. And then I think in addition to what we can see is how our employees are passionate about really bringing change, and therefore working with the stakeholders, the doctors, around helping educate them on the new diagnostics and new therapeutics, advances in therapy, and then bringing together stakeholders, acting as a catalyst and a convener to bring people together, like the NCI, Chulapur Royal Academy, NHSO, Thai Cancer Society, bringing them together to discuss this important issues of how we close the gap.
That's all. We learned a lot about key issues on the World Cancer Day 2022 and how preventive measures by Roche. Thanks Mr. Farid Bitgoli, General Manager of Roche Thailand, Myanmar, Cambodia and Laos. Thanks for joining us today.